What's up, guys? It's 7 o'clock on Tuesday. This is Natalie casting for Game Builder at Yukodit with Eline Media's Make Room. I hope you are joining us tonight from the on the ground Yukodit studio, and I hope you're excited about making games with me tonight. I'm going to chat here for a few minutes before I get started on stuff. But if you're joining in, please say hi in the chat as soon as you log in, just so I know you're here and can say hi. I will be hanging out for the next hour here to talk about making games and about your Unity projects. So if you are interested in asking me any questions, you can definitely let me know. And any other issues or leads on game development, definitely say the word and I will definitely talk about whatever you need. Hello, I'm saying hi to Gregory. I see the Pickle Norter, which I assume is Thomas. Hello to you both in the chat. Just hanging out here today. Hopefully, we'll see Ali and looking for some of our friends, Francis and Christian, as well. Of course, we'll give them a few minutes to log in. I see Christian joining us in the chat. Hello, Christian. Welcome to another week of game development. I hope you guys are having a good week. If we were at the studio, I would always say, what was one word to describe it? But I'll just say my own word since I'm the broadcaster here. And it's been slow. We're stuck inside and it's a little weird just waking up, and sometimes I don't go outside at all. So just still getting used to that. I don't know if maybe you guys like staying inside all day or if you wish we could go out and do things and be together again, but I'm definitely wishing that we could be together again. So what are you going to do though? We're stuck for this next little while. As we're waiting for folks to roll in, I wanted to let you guys know that if you miss this video every week that we do on Tuesdays, you can also follow Make Room on YouTube. So we have a YouTube channel. It's Make Room. You can search for that on YouTube, or you can subscribe and get notifications when we publish new videos. The video for Tuesday nights is recorded every week and posted on our YouTube channel. So if you miss something or if I go over something important that you want to re-watch, you can head to the YouTube channel and re-watch it there. So I just wanted to remind folks that this exists, and it is for you. It is for you guys. So don't hesitate to make use of this. Um, in addition to the recorded videos of these live casts, which we do 3 times a week on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, there are also tutorial videos there that you can check out. So if you check this channel page, you'll see that we have shorter videos on doing smaller Unity things, and every week we're posting more um, looks into sort of under the hood of real life game development. So definitely stay tuned on here. It's a great place to learn when you're not sitting here watching me live cast. And whether or not we're in person from now on, this YouTube channel will exist and we'll have content here for you. So if you want to learn about games, I strongly recommend heading here and sampling the videos that we have to offer. I wanted to let you guys know that, again, we're working on this April 2020 game making challenge. The theme, as you know, is Alone Together. And also, I'm making a game for this. So I'm making a game as well as you guys. And I'm making it with Dan, who I think some of you have met Dan. He's one of my co instructors who does Unity development. And if you're interested in following along in the development process with Dan and I working on our game, you can check out our instructor game videos. So we've posted a couple instructor game videos here right on the YouTube channel. We have part 1 and part 2 posted, and in those videos, we talk about the game we're making and what went into building it. We're still very much working on this game right now. It's in development, and I would love for you guys to get to see what we're doing to put this game together, because when we turn it in, game making challenge. So I'm really excited about that. New videos about the instructor game every week, some of them from me, other of them from Dan, and all of them are little game development things that are really helpful to know if you're making a game of your own. So I see Francis in the chat already asking some questions. Were you able to fix the issue that my project had? Francis is asking. And Francis, the answer to that should be yes. I pulled everyone's project this week who has one and just checked out the current state. So I had heard from a couple of you folks. Francis and also Christian had mentioned bugs going on, and um, both of those things should be resolved now. Christian was having an issue with the cat moving, and Francis, I know your project wasn't compiling. I removed the buggy code from yours, so if you pull the latest version, you should be able to run your project now just fine. So with that in mind, debugging has happened, and I'm hoping today we can move forward with um, actually starting to put prototypes together, actually starting to put something together that looks like the video games that we're trying to build here and not just a blank Unity project. So I wanted to give you guys an example of a really great project that a student in my other game studio put together. So I'm going to show you this example, and then I'll give you some tips after I show that example that will help you get towards um, putting together something that's about like the example I showed you. I see Greg asking in the chat, how can I put a park in my game? That's actually an excellent question. And Greg, if you're interested in doing a park, I would recommend that you check out the instructor game video I posted on the YouTube channel on the environment I did for my game. I actually put together a park in my game using a Unity asset store asset that I downloaded, and you could do the same thing in yours. So this video right here, it's called April 2020 Instructor Game Part 2 Environment, would be a great place to head if you want to put a park in your game. So bookmark that for later, because I'm going to show you guys an example right now. And these videos are available for you to watch at any time. Following that example, I'm going to open everyone's Unity project and just give you guys some tips and help in moving these projects forward. So if folks want me to do things in their game while I'm casting today, for example, Greg, I can pull in the park asset that I downloaded here and send it your way so you have something to work with. Similarly, sending that message out to everyone, Christian, Thomas, Francis, if you guys want me to tweak, polish, and help out with your project on the cast, type in what you want to do in the chat and we'll see how far we can get by 8 o'clock. But I'm starting off today with an example. And again, this is a project that I'm connected up with through my other studio. We have some really, really talented folks working in our studio in New York City. And one of the students there put together this absolutely fantastic prototype. So if you are thinking about, what does Natalie want answer to that question? This example is a really great first prototype for this video game. So what I see in this game, and you'll watch me play it in a minute, is I see an environment, which is on view here in the scene, and I see a player controller that I can move around in the scene. This game maker has also, amazingly started working on game mechanics as well. But I would be incredibly happy if I saw in your project the basics of an environment and a player controller, otherwise known as an avatar, just like she has here. So I'm going to run this into this game. So essentially, a street. And if you look down here in the bottom of the screen, we've got some toilet paper at things, and the toilet paper explodes. So this is a really great prototype here. And you can see how she's got a thing in there that says temporary enemy. So she's not done with the enemies, and the explosions appear to go on for maybe a bit too long, but this is really impressive. And this is exactly the kind of thing I'm looking for at this stage. I expect what this student did is she downloaded an asset, and that asset was likely pre-built. So it probably came with this basic low poly downtown, and then put some thought and effort into figuring out how to get toilet paper to shoot it. So, getting the toilet paper to throw like that is actually a fair amount of development. There's going to be some coding involved in making a game like this. But the first steps are to get this environment set up so the block like this, and then I want to be able to walk around in it with my, those explosions need to happen and then stop instead of just sitting there on the street like that. Hopefully this is what I'm going to see next as she works on the game. Yeah, I see Francis can say about the internet. So hopefully we'll get back and not lag for the if to cope with it. I'm going to wait a second and see if it catches up. So hold while that goes. Okay, yeah, it looks like it's caught up. Hopefully I'm lagging a little bit less now. Awesome. Try lowering the quality in settings. It might help. That's a great suggestion, Ali. Thank you for tossing that in. What I would love to show you guys at this point is your games. I'm actually going to close this one in case perhaps my buffering has to do with some passive relationship between some of these other windows and the Unity projects. So, all right. So here we are in a few different people's. Greg's here, and I've got Francis's as well. Francis is a version of Unity, so his interface looks a little bit different, but luckily it should all work the same. I am going to start with Christian and Greg because I know the two of you had requested to use a dog. And there is definitely something wrong in this. Over here, around, I hit play, and, I just don't know what's going on in this at all. So sometimes when you end up in a situation like this where the scene just looks messed up, a lot of times I'll just throw the scene out and start over. And so I'm going to hop into this blank cat demo scene here. And Greg, if you're watching, I would say you should listen up here too, because I've got a dog for both you and Christian now loaded into your project. And for Christian, I'm going to go ahead and load in a dog player so that you have a blank scene to work with using a dog avatar instead of a cat. And what I'm actually going to do here is first I'll download any updates that Christian's made to the project before I make my own changes. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a scene with the dog avatar just running around in a blank. So let's go back to the scenes folder. Cat demo would probably be a good place to start. Now, reminding everyone that, this list here in the scenes folder are all different like levels that I'm building in the Unity project. So, sometimes when you're looking around in this project, you've got Unity open, you need to click on the scenes folder and look to see what all of the different scenes are and make sure you're opening the correct one. You might be opening a broken one, and best to delete it if it's broken. But um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cat demo scene and I'm going to press Control D to duplicate it. So I've created a scene called cat demo 1, and I think I'll actually rename this dog demo. It says reload. Now that I've got dog demo here, I can actually come into my root assets folder, and I'm going to take the dog player, which is already in as a prefab, and put it right in the scene. It's funny, the dog is a bit taller than the cat, but you guys know how to change that, right? Okay, so let's delete the cat player since this is our dog scene. I'm going to click on my camera. And if you notice on the camera in this camera avatar setup, the camera always has a target. And because I just deleted the cat, that camera's target is missing. So I'm going to put the dog right there. I'm going to check a couple things here. The dog wants to stand on the ground. And so I want to make sure that the ground is selected here in grounded check layer. It's the second to last setting. And then I'm going to click on the plane and make sure that says ground. So, and this is important if you're using these avatars, they can't walk on anything that isn't tagged ground here in the layer. So make sure that you tag layer as ground. Again, that's in the inspector in the upper right here. Should say ground. Let's see if the dog works. Let me know how my connection is, guys. Seems like it's stopped buffering, but if you guys are still having problems, I'll do a little bit more problem solving. So we've got the dog in here and ready to go. And this scene that I've just created, dog demo, I'm now going to upload and send over to Christian. So I'm going to click save. I push dog, and Christian is now ready to pull my update and start working on a scene using the dog. Let's go one more time. Again, we want to make sure that we have a green check mark, and I needed to do a couple pushes and pulls. So Christian could now go into scenes. He could double click on dog demo and he would find this dog ready to go. I'm going to head to Greg's project. So I have a similar scene set up in Greg's project. The dog is really already loaded. And what Greg would need to do if he wanted to pull this scene and start working on it is he would need to click on the collab button up here and then make sure that he's resolved any updates, pushes, or pulls he needs to do. I've got this up to date, but Greg may see a down arrow, and clicking the down arrow, that means that you need to download the changes and you're going to be able to pull the dog avatar I loaded in. So if you guys are running Unity and you do want to follow along, you could definitely do that during this video. You also have the option to just watch and try working on this after the video. As far as project management goes, it can sometimes be useful to, make sure you can pull my changes while I'm on the cast, because now is your chance to troubleshoot with me and type in the chat if you're having any problems. So maybe just this one thing of making sure you can see and play with this dog would be worth doing sometime before 8 o'clock during this video. But Christian and Greg, you guys are set up with this avatar. Let's check out Francis's project. Francis, as you can see, Francis has sent in some changes, so I'm going to download those and see what's there. We'll let this run for a second, hoping that it doesn't crash while I'm casting, because that's never a good look, but so be it if it does. Your version of Unity has changed. We won't worry about that. So we still have a blank sample scene. All right. So Francis, I see he's saying also the map I want to use are in the prefabs. Very cool. So just standardizing here as you're working on these projects. I would recommend that if you're working on a scene or a game level, you know, put it in the scenes folder so I know where to go. Francis saying it's called Mountain Racetrack, so we'll open that and we'll check out maybe scene 1 dash night, see what's there. Looks dope. Let's see if we can actually move in it or if it's just a map. Yeah, that's very cool looking. Very cool. So looks like the next steps with a map like this would most certainly be to load in a car and see if you can get yourself driving on those roads. We've got the car, as we know, in the standard assets. So again, just starting with this prefab here, this is super basic and you could load in another car. But since this one works off the bat, Francis, your task would definitely be to get this car loaded in this mountain scene and see if you can actually make it so I can drive around in this map. Okay, so let's loop back to Christian's scene. I'm going to touch on Christian and Greg for a moment since they're focusing on the dog. And then, Francis, since you're working on this racetrack situation, if you do have a chance during this hour to try to throw a car in here and get it moving along with the multi-purpose camera rig, I would say go for it. And I'll pull your change after I talk a little bit about setup with the dog and getting a scene to rise up around the dog. So, feeling free to do any work you want to do while you're listening here. You can also watch and do it later. All right. So we're looping back here to Christian. And this is being a little grumpy, but no problems. Christian has said in the chat, I put the dog in my scene, but it can't move. It just shows the floor. Okay. So, my recommendation for you, and Greg, if you're listening, I would say this goes to you as well. Just use the scene I gave you. So, rather than trying to reconstruct the basic scene with the dog, use the scene that the dog is in already because that scene already works. So, Christian, you should make sure you're up to date by clicking on the collab button. So, verify that you have this green check mark. And if you do have the green check mark, I would say start working on your game in this dog demo scene. So once you're on the green check, you'll have that scene in your scenes folder. You'll be able to double click on it here and see this that I have here, which it should work. So I would leave the Natalie scene alone. I noticed that there's some weirdness going on in that scene that I don't know how it happened, but I've created this fresh scene for you with the dog, and this one should work really nicely. So Christian, if you're doing game development during this as well, see if you can get yourself into the dog demo scene, and then hopping into Greg's project, shouting out to Greg that you should be in the dog demo scene in your project as well. Yes. So Christian is asking, so should I do my game in dog demo? I think that would be the best. So let's say yes, build your game in the dog demo scene. We've been prototyping using a couple different ones. Use this one because now the dog is there. So use the dog demo scene, Christian and Greg, both of you have that in your project. So you should be able to open that scene and build your game there. So I wanted to show a couple of examples of, how you could actually start building out this environment. Um, and, again, as I'm talking, don't hesitate to throw questions in here. Um, I'm going to keep moving forward, but I'm checking the chat pretty continuously. I've got it right here, and I want to know if bugs are happening. So if you hear me moving on, that doesn't mean I won't stop to answer any questions that arise. I thought I would show how to get a park in with this dog. Because Greg had asked, how would I put a park in with this avatar? So what you've got here is you've got this basic plane kind of just sitting here like a floor. And you've got this animal you can move around. But what you're asking is, where do I get 3D models that I can put together and turn into a park around the dog? I see Greg asking, how do I find the dog demo? That is an excellent question. If you're in the Unity project, what you're going to want to do is go down to the bottom of the screen, click on scenes here in the project window. There's a scenes folder. Actually, that I do believe that's behind my head in the cast. So it's essentially like right behind where, my face is hovering in the window. Um, if you click on the word scenes, you'll see two different scenes listed right over here. You'll have cat demo and dog demo. To find dog demo, you'll need to double click on that scene. So I double click on dog demo. I find myself here with this dog. And there he is. Isn't he cute? I love this dog. Um, so that should be there. Just take a look for it. And Christian, if you're in dog demo too, you should be good. And I was just going to show you guys, if you wanted a park, I have a recommendation of a really good park that I actually found. And it's really easy to download and load in without from scratch placing every tree, every path, every bench, etc. Christian's saying I'm on it right now. That's fantastic. So again, this is how you find assets, right? So you say, I want to put something in my game. Where do I go to get that? And the answer is the asset store. So I'm going to go to the asset store, pull in a park. Asset store is right here. Asset store opens for me. This is connecting me to a web portal. And I'm going to right click on the words asset store and go to maximize so I can really look at this. Low. So hopefully you can hear me talking. I'm just going to keep talking about this park until something changes. So I was showing how Greg could lay out a park in his game and getting repeatedly and viciously interrupted. So I've got these assets in and kind of giving Greg some stuff that he could play with here. I'm going to go ahead and push this whole package so Greg has the opportunity to use it. And that's right there in dog demo. Man, I hope that the connection stays. It's always just such a sad thing when I'm trying to talk about this and the internet just wastes the hour for me. All right. So we've got this cool little park here. So that would be one way that, if you were wanting to make an environment for this dog, you could lay it out. And I want to test this because, when you get assets, sometimes you actually need to see how they work. And the first thing I'm noticing is, okay, I can stand on these, but the dog can't walk on there. And if you remember what I said earlier in the cast, slash, if you were able to hear it and I was not buffering at that moment, you would probably remember that I said any asset in the project that you want the dog to be able to walk on needs to be labeled as ground. So I click on this, I go over here to layer and I select ground. And then the dog should be able to walk right on top of that square. So let's see if that works now. All right. Excellent. So my dog's hanging out in my project, ready to walk around in the park. Just checking the chat there. Hopefully you guys are still watching. I sent these along. So Greg, if you are still watching the stream, this stuff is in your project now and it's available for you to build. And again, what you would do here is with these assets, you're going to come down here in the project window and you're going to just drag them right in. So there's a little thing there. I've got a lantern, just really nice, fun stuff. And up to you how you want to lay it out. If you start working on dog demo, you're going to override any changes I make, so I won't edit this scene anymore. Cool. So Francis is looking for help in adding a camera for the car. I will hop over into the project with the racetrack next. I wanted to briefly touch on a similar workflow for Christian. Christian, if you're still with us, and I hope you are, you could go through a similar process of building out the environment for your dog by using this Tune Furniture pack I loaded in for you, and that's already in there. Um, if you're down here in the project and you want to be able to see what these are, you can click on them and see the image on the right, or you can come down here and drag this little tiny little bar until you have nice big pictures so you can see what everything is. So you're going to be able to build out a pretty nice interior environment for a dog with the Tune furniture. And here's a tip for folks if you do want to make an interior. One thing you can do to make a wall is you can go create 3D object cube and then resize that thing to be like a wall. So there I've got a wall. If I were going to make an interior for this dog, I would definitely do that approach just to lay something out and figure out what this space is going to be like. All right. So again, if you have questions about that, Christian and Greg, just let me know as you're playing around. I'm going to hop to Francis's game and talk a little bit about loading in a camera. I labeled everything as ground, but the dog can't walk on it. Well, that is strange. I'll have to see what your problem is. If you push the version of the project you have, I will definitely take a look. So yeah, anytime you're having bugs, just upload it using Collab and I can always try to troubleshoot. All right. So Francis is looking to load in a camera, and in this project, the way I would work is I'm going to throw the car right in there. Let's put it here. And it's kind of facing in a weird direction. I kind of want to rotate it. Looks a little more natural. Cool. Christian saying I just did. I'll check that in a minute. Francis, if you want a camera, so I got that car out of the car folder in the vehicles for standard assets. Cameras would be in the cameras folder. So I'm coming up here to cameras, unrolling this, prefabs, and then multi-purpose camera rig is the one I want to use for this car. So the great thing about that camera is it automatically works. You don't have to do any target. It automatically finds the car. I should be able to hit play and immediately just come along behind the car. Let's see what happens. Oh, classic problem. I've got 2 cameras in the scene. So I'm going to get out of the game here. You'll notice I have multi-purpose camera rig here and I have main camera. So I need to delete the original main camera and that will allow me to see out of this camera. So now let's run the game and see if this works. Excellent. Very cool, very cool. And I immediately ran into the wall because I suck at driving cars in games like this. Oh my goodness. Oh no, I drove off. Let's just move that over there. Cool. Okay. This car is hard to handle, you guys. I'm not gonna lie. Oh no, I know I can do this. Okay, there we go, there we go. Come on, come on. Okay. Ah, nice. All right, so here we are. I'm driving. And of course, like immediately with this, I'm seeing some things I would want to improve. It zooms too far out when accelerating, Francis is saying in the chat, and I absolutely agree with that. And so your first steps here are going to be to get the camera to behave a little bit more like the way you want. So the car is able to kind of get away from the camera. And oh my gosh. To edit the camera. So multi-purpose camera rig here. Move speed, I think, is the issue. I think it needs to move faster so it can keep up with the car, which accelerates fairly quickly. And so, Francis, say for you, I'll send this over, and I would suggest that what you do is start to work on how you could get the camera to stick to the car by changing some of these settings with move speed, and maybe follow velocity would be a setting you want to play with. And the way it would work here is I would click on these, edit the numbers, and then run the game and see how it changes. One option is to say, okay, I'm going to turn move speed up to 10 and just see what that does. You run the game. There it is. It already looks like it's moving faster. Yeah, that's a much better dynamic. So that's successful, right? But another cool thing you can do is you can put the game down here, run it, and then here's my game. It's super tiny. If I wanted to dynamically change these and see what happens while the game's running, now I could turn this down to 1 and I'll see what happens. Now with it down to 1, it gets away. Okay, I pop out here, hit 10. I drove off, so it's hard to test that. But, there it is. So you can edit these settings while you're playing the game and see it change, or you can edit it, press play, see what happened, get out of the game and change it again. Then it's just to figure out the car. Francis is saying next. Yeah. So similarly, if you're working on the car, you're going to have some settings here that are going to let you change the way the car handles. This is something for people that are experienced in handling for car games. Francis might know more about this than I do. This involves the physics of how cars move in the world. So we're talking torque, We're talking the amount of torque you can get by applying the handbrake. We're talking top speed, slip limit. We've got these numbers that apply specifically to the way a car handles when you're driving it very fast. Um, so, Francis, it's up to you. You're going to want to go ahead and start playing with the settings on both the car and the camera. I noticed in the chat, I saw Christian saying maybe he can put more lights, and I would agree with that. To me, I'm looking at this and it does appear to be fairly dark. Um, if you unroll in the hierarchy here, you can see there's a number of elements in here that have lights attached. That's an example of a light. But I feel like there are areas of this that are really dark, even still with these spotlights, that might benefit from adding a bit more. And of course, the way you would do that is, for example, let's say I wanted to add another one of these. I can click on it, press Control D, and then I've got another one that I can put somewhere else. I could even put it over here if I wanted on this rock. I might need to adjust the settings so that the spotlight is a little bit shorter. Since if I connect it to the rock, the spotlight actually goes below the ground. But there is a way to spread lighting out in this, and typically you would use what you already have if you are working with a pre-built scene in this way. All right, I'm going to see what everybody's saying in the chat. Um, More lights for Francis. Francis, you're getting merge conflicts. It is up to you. If you take my changes, then you will get the car and the camera already loaded in the scene. You can also take your own version and reload the car and the camera just the way I showed you. So merge conflict, it's either my version or your version. What else did people want to know? Greg is still looking for dog demo. So let's head into Greg's project one more time. I'll make this window smaller just so I can show exactly where this would be. Let's minimize all the other Unity and we'll minimize this. Um, so here it's smaller now, so I can show specifically shouting out to Greg here where dog demo is. I'm moving this out of the way of my head so you can actually see the entire Unity interface. So once again, yours should look like this. And if you're looking for that dog demo scene, you're going to want to go down here into the project window at the bottom of the screen, so the bottom rectangle. And you've got some folders in this bottom rectangle under assets. You would click on scenes, and then you would see cat demo and dog demo listed here in the box next to the folders. So scenes, dog demo. And then once you see dog demo there, you can double click on it. I'll click save since I was already in it. And that's the scene you're looking for. So I loaded these park assets in here, and you're not going to see those because I haven't uploaded them yet. What you should see is just a blank scene with a dog in it, and the dog should be able to move. So let me know if you're able to find that. I'm going to hop to Christian's one more time and check to see this bug that had to do with the dog not being able to move. So let's see what happens there, and hopefully we can fix it. Greg, if you're seeing tree textures, you're probably in the wrong folder. So make sure you're in the scenes folder of your project. There's definitely some tree textures in there, so I'm going to take Christian's version of dog demo. And we'll see what the problem is. Awesome. All right, so we've got a nice little bedroom here, but we want to make sure that the dog can actually walk. So he works in mine, and I'm not totally sure what's going on there. Christian, let me know in more detail what your problem was in this scene. I'm able to see the dog, and I'm able to move him on the ground in dog demo. So perhaps maybe we were talking about, how would you make it so that the dog could get on the bed is certainly a valid question here. Um, the other thing to notice in this game is if you are controlling this character with the mouse, so of course, when you move the mouse, the camera looks around and the dog kind of follows. But if you have the cursor outside of here, you might end up clicking on something in the project or making something weird happen, like pressing pause or whatever. So be sure when you're playing the game that you've got the cursor inside the window. There's a little bit of coding we can do together to make the cursor disappear when you run the game so that you don't see it and it's glued to the center of the screen. But we haven't coded that up yet. So it's possible for the cursor to kind of come in and out and just be all over the screen when you're playing. And that could be the source of some issues you might be having. So, Christian, for your game, I am able to move the dog. Your final thing to try, as always, if you're troubleshooting, is to close Unity and open it again. Sometimes it just gets in a weird state and it can be helpful to restart. We're coming towards the end, but I thought I would show you guys just a couple more things here. I wanted to show you how to make it so that the dog could stand on the bed in a situation like this, where when the asset comes in, you know, it's just going right through it. But before I want to do that, I just wanted to shout out. I know Thomas is in the chat. Thomas, if you're there, it is not too late to make a Unity project with us and join in on making a game, especially if you have a copyright on using food as a game character, as you mentioned in the chat earlier. And I did just want to invite you to create a Unity project and add me as a collaborator. So we've got instructions for how to do that. And your first step in joining in and doing game development along with the rest of the team would be to create your own blank Unity project using the computer you are hopefully on right now. Looks like Christian is having a collider issue. Yep, so we'll resolve that before the end. Thomas, again, if you're still here, you can go to makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning for all of the details on this game making challenge that we're doing. And then there are instructions on the Make Room blog, which you would click on up here to essentially do all of the basics to set your Unity project up. So how to install Unity is listed in here, how to create a new Unity project, and adding a collaborator. So once again, adding collaborators to a Unity project is your first step in getting hooked up with me and working on this live game development process we do on Twitch. So if you want to join in and have your game show up on the live cast next week, definitely head to this makeroom.elinemedia.com/blog and check out these two articles, how to create a new Unity project and adding collaborators. Those are going to get you on the right track, and I will get an email as soon as you add me as a collaborator. So definitely do that, and you'll want to add my personal email address, which is mesnardna@gmail.com. That's showing right here on the screen right now. Mesnardna@gmail.com is the email you want to use to add me to your project. All right. So we have a couple final things to do. We had Colliders and Christian's project. Greg says, OMG, we lost everything, went back to a sample scene. No worries, it won't all be lost. You just need to find this dog demo scene again. So if you're in a different scene, you just need to find this. As long as you haven't deleted it, you should be okay. So look around and check to see what scene you're in. And you can always check to see what scene you're in by looking up here at the top. At the very top of the window, you'll see it says Unity 2019.1.2F1 personal. And then next to where it says Unity 2019.1.2F1 personal, it says dogdemo.unity. And that is the current scene that I am in. So if you see up there sample scene, then you've moved out of the scene you were in and into a different scene. So you can find the scene you were in again by, again, coming down here into the folders in the project, clicking on scenes, and then you would double click on dog demo to load that scene. Okay, so coming in right here at the end of the hour, let's talk a bit about colliders and then we'll end there. So we were talking to Christian about getting this all kind of laid out. And this is a fantastic place to start. We've got a little bed here. We've got a wonderful little layout here of this side table. I'm just such a fan of this. And, the issue in this situation is the bed is not something I can jump up on. So anytime you want to be able to stand on something or run into something, of course, you need a collider. And, I touched on this last week. I'm going to touch on it again here. The easiest way to do that in this situation would be to just add one. So for the bed, I'm going to add a box collider. I type box in here. So once again, I clicked on add component. I type box collider appears. If I click the edit collider button, I'm going to see what that box is looking like. And I can actually adjust it to be the size of the bed. If I lose track of it like I just did, I'm going to have to click on the bed again and then click on edit collider again. It's kind of easy to lose hold of the handle, and don't worry about it if that happens. So I stretched that out to kind of take up the size of the bed. And now I need to look at it from the side because it looked like it was around the bed, but it actually seems like it kind of wasn't. 3D space is really, really mind bending. So you have to, play with it for a minute and just look at it from a number of different angles and see, if you're actually putting it around what you think you're putting it around. This is getting a little bit better. It's never easy. Okay. So that's sort of doing it. Let's pull this in a little bit. Okay. I'm going to move that dog so that he doesn't start out running into that. All right. And now I can walk on the bed, and Christian's already labeled it as ground, it looks like. So fantastic. The dog can walk on it. Now, Christian has asked in the chat, should I do that for every object? And that is a really, really smart question because it seems like the answer would be yes, that you would need to put a collider on every object. However, when you're putting colliders in a scene, what you should do is think about how you actually want to interact with the scene. So, for example, it's important that the dog can jump up on the bed. So I put a box collider on the top of the bed, allowing the dog to jump up on the mattress. However, if this is just a cluster of decorations over here, what I'm going to need to do is think, is it necessary for me to put a collider on every object? Or could I just put one collider that includes the cluster of stuff over there next to the bed? So I'm going to go add component here. I'm going to click box collider and edit collider. That's actually a pretty nice box for that chair, but I could open this up and include everything over there and just kind of put that whole cluster of stuff so that the dog can't walk through it. So let's just see what that seems like in the game. So I jump up on the bed. The stuff is still there, but I just can't walk through it, right? So I go over here. Yeah, okay, I can't walk there. That's fine, right? It doesn't. It's not important to me in a game like this that I be able to jump on top of those books necessarily. But for example, if I'm okay, I do want the dog to be able to jump on the books. Maybe I'll pull this. Maybe I'll pull this back a little bit like that. And then I could pull the books forward, just make it so that he can jump on those, you know, and that they're outside the collider. So in that case, I would need another collider for these books so that he could jump on them, because otherwise he will walk through them. So you got to decide what's important to you and how you want the environment to be interactive and build it out accordingly. In my mind, it's not worth it to put a collider on every single tiny little object, and that can also slow your game down. So, I think this approach where you include several things in one is actually a really smart idea. And then prioritize laying out colliders on objects that you think are important to your game. So, for this, for example, I might put this and then like put one more for the head of the bed so that the dog can't walk through the pillows. But then over here, I would just maybe put a big box in the corner. So it really just depends on what you want to do, and you can manipulate colliders however you want. But a common practice, I'll demo this in Greg's game. And then Greg, before I go, I'll see if I can figure out what you guys have got going on. A common practice with colliders would be to create a row of trees that looks like this. And then to say, I just need one box collider, because what those trees really are is a wall, right? So you'd do something like this with those trees and just use those as a basic boundary so that the dog is not able to walk past them. In video games, that's what a line of trees often is. It's a wall. Um, so, in something like this, it's like, oh, okay, I can't go over there, right? I get it. Don't worry, Greg, I will not save that in your scene. Let's delete that. Um, and Christian's question is, of course, isn't it a game about knocking objects off of places? So if you want to be able to knock an object off of something, you're going to need to allow the dog to jump up on it. And then you're going to need to allow the object to be knocked off. And to do that, we will talk about this more next week. What you would need is a collider and a rigid body. So let's say stay tuned, and I'll give a detailed explanation of how to set a ball up to do that. Whee! He's playing soccer. But for now, what I'd be looking for is a nice environment for this dog to kind of exist in, so that we could start to set up objects to knock off of surfaces. Um, so build your environment first, and then on Tuesday next week, we'll look at knocking things over. For Greg, I don't know why you're in sample scene, but I'll send over this current version. And if you guys download this current version that I pushed, Greg, you guys should be able to once again reclaim dog demo and see exactly what I'm showing here once again. So that's 7 to 8 and even a little bit more of game development. I just wanted to finish up by saying what I'd be looking for from you guys on Tuesday next week is to see some progress here. I would love to see this, what that I'm looking at here. This is Greg's game. I would love to see a park here, a real park. not just a couple pathways. I would love to see a whole environment here with trees, all kinds of different objects here in the prefabs with park, bushes, little huts, whatever it is. Like, you really have the opportunity to be creative in laying out this environment. And you could download additional assets from the asset store, pull in a house if you want to make it a neighborhood. Christians on a similar track here, I want to see an environment. So for Christian scene, what this needs to become is not just a few furniture laid out, but maybe the entire downstairs area of a house. So, or you could do an upstairs if it's a bedroom, but let's see a bedroom and a kitchen and a living room. So maybe three different areas where I can run around and knock things over. And then I would say if you are ready, I would lay out some colliders on these things and start placing your small objects that you want the dog to be able to knock over. So we've already got these books here, and these are great candidates for having the dog interact and knock them over. And next week, we'll look at how to set it up so that the dog can hit those and knock them off of the table, the bed, whatever you set up. But to do that, I need this to be a complete environment where the stuff is already there in the scene. So the chairs, the bookshelves, kitchen counter, all of the things you want to include in here should be in the scene by next week. And then shouting out to Francis, who is working on the game with the car and the multi-purpose camera rig. Your assignment is to adjust the handling on the car and the way the camera works so that this experience of driving in this particular scene with this car works well. Obviously, we were having some handling issues in the basic setup, so you'll need to work on this a little bit. And then also thinking about ways to evolve the lighting. And if there's any areas of this that are just too dark, maybe giving us a little bit more visibility. Um, Christian's asking, how can you make a walkway that leads to other places such as the kitchen? Wow, that's a cool idea. Um, I'm going to show just a bit of that. And if you have any final questions before I log off, I'll be here maybe just for 5 more minutes and then we'll call it on tonight's live cast. So if you wanted to make a walkway, let me remind you that you can make walls by going over to create 3D object cube. Whoops, I lost track of my cube there for a second. And then once you have a cube in your scene, you can click up here on the scale tool and turn it into whatever shape you want. So in this case, if you want to make a wall, you would turn it into a wall here. And then, so say you wanted to make like a hallway to the kitchen, I would use walls like this. So I've created this wall here. I'm clicking on cube. I press Control D to duplicate it. I've got this here, now I can go like this, drag this over here, separate that out a bit. That's a pretty big hallway, but you get the idea. I'll run this and follow the dog, right? Here we are. Here we are. So you can lay out a whole labyrinth of walls by using those cubes and just scaling them to look the way you want. At the end of the day, you will need to do some lighting here. We have shadows kind of blocking the view of the dog when you run through this hallway, but don't worry about lighting for now. Just don't put ceilings on your game and you'll still be able to see what you're doing. Okay, so that about closes out the tutorial and game development I'm doing for this evening. Um, Once again, I wanted to touch on for Thomas, who I know I saw you in the chat, and if you're still watching, um, sending you over to makeroom.elinemedia.com/blog to get details on what you should be working on, how to create a new Unity project, and adding collaborators to a Unity project are exactly where you should be. But there's also a guideline post here, the April 2020 Game Making Challenge, Building a Prototype. This is step-by-step instructions for getting yourself exactly to where we're at on this cast right now with these early prototypes. So if you want to join in and work on a game, you can head to any of these posts are going to give you information about how to hop in and join us. I believe that you will need my email address. So once again, that's messnardna@gmail.com. I will go ahead and toss that to you guys once more when I send out the follow-up email for today's cast. But overall, guys, I will check your projects throughout the week. And my goal would be to see all three of these at the next stage. So in the case of the dog, we're looking for an environment, and Christian and Greg. Hallelujah. I see in the chat. We found dog demo. I'm so excited. It's there. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So for the dog, we're looking for an environment. And for Francis, your project, we're looking for a car that handles really nicely. We're looking for some lighting. And if you really want to work on that project, you could start recoloring the car. Um, if you're interested in learning how to do that, we do have some videos here on the Make Room YouTube channel. I believe there's one. Let's see. I'll have to email you guys. I did about an hour showing how to use materials. And I think I've touched on that with you guys as well. So recoloring the car is definitely going to be a possibility, or perhaps switching out the mesh and getting a new car in there that still works the way the other one did. So we're well over 8 o'clock, and I'm excited that you guys have been working with me this whole time. This has been really fun getting you guys going on this uh, game making project. And yes, so always save. That's a good final thing to do as you're bringing this to a close. File save, you know, and then if you want me to be able to see what you did after you save it, of course, you'll need to press this button, collab. The arrow means that you need to send me your changes. Yes, you can download assets. So that was Christian's question in the chat. Please download assets. Anything you download is fine with me. Um, I recommend, don't download massive asset packs if you can avoid it. These cartoony looking types of assets are a good way to go because um, they take less time to download. So really beautiful looking stuff can be really huge on your computer. But you can download assets, save, and push your changes into the collaboration cloud by clicking on collab. And I will see what you're working on. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. It was really fun talking to you all about this. Be in touch with me. If you have questions, you can continue to email me at any time and I will troubleshoot. I will look at your project, and hopefully next week I will see some examples that match the example from my other studio that I showed today. A nice environment, an avatar that works, and maybe even starting to move towards some real gameplay. Which would be amazing. Things I can do besides just moving around, attack things, jump, um, drive. All of those would be really, really fun actions for me to take in your game. And we'll talk more about that next week. All right. Thanks for listening. stick around, do some game development on Unity since you're already there, and be in touch with me throughout the week on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Make Room blog has articles on what to do. And you'll hear from me on email with a reminder of the email address where you can add me as a collaborator if you still need to do that. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. Have a wonderful evening and a fantastic week.